tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech.
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill.
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people.
All right, two moments that in many ways defined last night's debate. Donald Trump's performance included his usual stream of grievances, along with many false and misleading claims. However, as you saw in that first clip, the debate was particularly rough for President Biden. Concerns about his age, perhaps his biggest weakness, according to polls, were on full display as he struggled through many of his responses, speaking with a soft, hoarse voice, which his campaign blamed on a cold. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Friday, June 28th. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have the host of Way Too Early, White House Bureau Chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire, NBC News National Affairs Analyst John Heilman. He's also a partner and chief political columnist at Puck. They are both at the debate side in Atlanta. MSNBC contributor Mike Barnicle joins us, and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist and associate editor of The Washington Post and MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson. It's good to have you all on board. I think we should begin with Joe, Willie, and me and get your reflections on the debate last night.
Well, I think I should start by saying, without any apologies, that I love Joe Biden and Jill, and I will gladly debate anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere, over the issue of whether Joe Biden has been the most effective president in passing bipartisan legislation, in expanding NATO, in responding to the rising threat coming from China, by flexing America's strength around China, by having the strongest economy in the world, bar none, the strongest economy actually relative to the rest of the world in 50, 60, 70 years, the strongest dollar in half a century, the strongest military relative to the rest of the world, I would argue, and many others would argue, since 1945. I think his presidency has been an unqualified success. If, however, you believe, as do I, and as do so many people who watch this program and who fear just how dark of a place a second Donald Trump term will take America, then I think it's critical that we ask the same questions about this man I love, respect, and whose public service in saving this country from Donald Trump over the last 3.5 years I honor and always will. I think we have to ask the same questions of him that we have asked of Donald Trump since 2016, and that is, if he were CEO and he turned in a performance like that, would any corporation in America, any Fortune 500 corporation in America, keep him on as CEO? If this were Donald Trump, time and time again, we talked about the Goldwater. Where's the Barry Goldwater? To walk over and tell Richard Nixon it was over, to tell Donald Trump it was over. And now the question is, do Democrats need to do the same thing of Joe Biden? I mean, these are hard questions, but the fact is, friends, failure is just not an option. In 2024, failure is not an option. So who I love, who I respect, who I revere for their work and their duty to service over their lifetime, really is not relevant. It's not relevant for any of us. It's not relevant for Democratic leaders. It's not relevant for anyone. The question is, we know Joe Biden can govern. And again, I'll debate that issue with anyone, and I will win. I will destroy anybody that wants to debate Joe Biden's record over the past 3.5 years. He can run the White House. He can run the country effectively, despite the barrage of lies that constantly come at him, like Donald Trump's lies last night. But can he run for president in 2024? Donald Trump lied over and over and over and over again. And Joe Biden couldn't respond to any of those lies. In fact, as the New York Times said, he spent much of the night with his mouth agape and his eyes darting back and forth. He couldn't fact check anything Donald Trump said. And not only that, he missed one layup after another after another. He couldn't respond effectively to Donald Trump trying to overthrow American democracy on January 6th. He couldn't respond effectively to Donald Trump's continued stream of lies about his own record. And he couldn't even respond effectively on the issue of abortion, where for some reason he darted wildly to the issue of immigration. And on immigration, as I said yesterday morning, any Democrat that can't turn to their Republican opponent and blast them for killing the strongest, toughest border bill in the history of America, drafted by a right-wing senator from Oklahoma, may not be up to the job. And so that's the question. I know people are waiting and say, oh, and David Plouffe, I have such great respect for David Plouffe. He said we need to wait 3 or 4 days because Donald Trump really turned off swing voters in a lot of focus groups once they saw him again. And that makes a lot of sense. But the door was opened so many times. This race should not be close. We've been asking, why is this race close? We have no idea why this race is close. We saw last night why this race has been close and why I fear Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States unless things change. And I will say, Mika, the one thing that I know that you believe it may have been because he was sick, and I'm open to that fact, because I'll just say, as I've said on the show, I spent 3 hours with this man, maybe back in March. 3 hours, cogent, on top of the issues, on top of every issue around the world. And last night, he simply was not on the biggest debate stage ever. And I think what surprised me and what surprised a lot of people very close to Joe Biden is the fact that this man always rises to the occasion. And last night was sadly for him, and I believe for Democrats in this country, and again, if you believe what's at stake at this election is what we believe is at stake, I'll even use the word tragically. He tragically did not rise to the occasion last night.
Okay, so as you can see, you won't see us spinning here on Morning Joe at all. But let me tell you what I believe, and then we'll go to Willie. Biden had a terrible night. He could not land a thought, not even in the closing statement, which is something, that's the easiest part. Write down a few words, go through them, go through the thoughts. And while I validate the chaos and hysteria Democrats might be feeling, anybody who cares about democracy might be feeling, anybody who cares about women's rights and our safety and our lives might be feeling, totally understand that. And at the same time, as the night was over and I was hearing you on the phone and all our phones were exploding, I just had this gut feeling that I'm not ready to give up on Joe Biden, not even close. Joe Biden has lost more in his life than he has won in every way, especially politically. This man has lost and lost, and the only time that he wins is when it matters. And that is, we have proof of that. He has lost in personal ways. He has lost and hit rock bottom in every way possible, and every time he comes back fighting. So for me, watching what happened last night, again, it was terrible. It was terrible. There's no way to spin it. I still wonder what he's going to look like in a week. I wonder if he was sick. He came out on the stage and I thought something was wrong. I still believe he's the best choice for this country, even with that performance last night, because he was standing next to a man who represents fascism, who doesn't believe in this country, and would not even agree to the results of this election if they were free and fair to him. A man who has incited a riot, a man who tried to overturn the election, a man who's liable of sexual abuse, a man who is a fraudster, a man who is a convicted felon. So many times Joe Biden has hit rock bottom. Last night was one of them. And I'm just not going to jump to conclusions here and jump on the hysteria train. I am rocked a little bit by it, didn't like it, was really worried. But I really, truly believe in him as a president and as a human being.
Well, and I know so many people watching do, and agree with you. And again, I've already said what I think of the man personally and think of his job. I will say, Willie, that for me, I've been in politics long enough and I've been around politics long enough to know that often time doesn't heal all wounds. And if this debate does not lead to serious discussions between Democrats and the president, then what you end up having is sort of this frozen political situation where Democrats then start convincing themselves 2, 3, 5, 10 days out that the guy in power, the guy that people closest to power will suddenly, you know, they'll start spinning and they'll believe their spin. And so I don't think that it's panic. I'm the first one. We talked about Democratic bedwetting last night. That is not this. This is like a war. We see a political battle for democracy, and this is like losing a major battle. Is it panic after a war where a major battle is lost to say this general? Don't know if this general is up to leading the troops the rest of the way. But I mean, again, these are just things that Democrats are going to have to answer over the next couple of days. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about the substance over the next few hours of the show about last night. Donald Trump did what he does. He lied. He lied about having the greatest economy in the history of the world. He didn't, of course. He lied about his role on January 6th. He lied about immigration, what happened during his administration. He lied and he lied and he lied. That's all true. The problem is the American people were watching to see if Joe Biden, in this moment, we talked yesterday about how people have sort of tuned this out and they will tune in at 2, 3, 4 big moments. Last night was one of those, to see if he was up to the job. And the resounding answer, last night anyway, was no. And it happened within the first 10, 12, 15 minutes. And there's been a lot of talk in the last 12 hours about how elected officials, Democrats, insiders, campaign strategists, people who also have to run on the ballot this fall worried that they're going to lose if Joe Biden's on the ballot, and also donors, that they're concerned. I think the bigger problem is that's all a conversation we'll have in a minute and what that means. The bigger problem is that regular people who don't watch cable news every day, people who are not on Twitter, people who don't absorb politics the way we do, they watched last night and said, my God, I don't think he's up to this. They did tune in last night. Many of them Democrats hoping for the best, and instead their worst fears were confirmed. And I, like you guys, I heard Kamala Harris's name a lot last night. I heard Gavin Newsom's name a lot last night. I heard Governor Josh Shapiro's name last night. He'll be a guest on our show in just a little bit here. I heard Wes Moore's name last night. People who desperately want what you just laid out, Joe, which is to prevent Donald Trump from being in the White House again, last night becoming convinced, and maybe their minds can be changed, but it didn't feel like it last night, that Joe Biden now cannot beat Donald Trump. That is the message, not just from party insiders, but from regular people who will decide the election.
Well, and the thing is, Mika, this is not because I don't think any Democrat would want anything to be about power or about personality or about a personality cult. None of this is personal. I remember telling Newt Gingrich when he was shocked that we were voting to remove him as speaker. He said, this is nothing personal. If we believe in what we believe, I would do this to my mother. Mm-hmm. I would do this to my mother if I believed she was standing in the way of our goals. And in this case, we were talking about a balanced budget and smaller and more effective government back then. Now we're talking about, Mike Barnacle, democracy. And again, I'm not saying that everything happens today and maybe we wait a week. I'm just saying personal feelings, personal admiration, love, respect, honor, all the things I talked about in my feelings about Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and their family, that Mika and her family have felt about Joe Biden for 50 years, that I felt for as long as I've known him, that you felt about Joe Biden, that cannot play a role in any of this. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God, in June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task of running for president of the United States. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, you know, it would be hard to be more insightful than what we've heard from you, Mika, and Willie in the last 10 or 15 minutes about what happened last night. Watching it last night, I was reminded of a friendship I had for a long time with the late Kenny O'Donnell, who was then technically Chief of Staff to John F. Kennedy. And Kenny used to say that the primary job of the Chief of Staff, or anyone that close to the presidency, was to tell the president the bad news. Well, we now know what the bad news was from last night. Joe Biden had an awful night, a terrible night. Mm-hmm. And going forward, it's going to be up to, I mean, my phone, like Mika's phone, like everyone's phone, was filled last night with messages from the donor class, people indicating they were crying watching the thing, people upset because of what they perceived to be Joe's really, really bad night visually. And it's such a visual thing, the TV and the mouth agape quote from the New York Times, all accurate, all true. And people indicating to me on the phone, messages and phone calls, that they felt badly for him. Unfortunately, nobody votes for President of the United States because they feel badly for someone. Elections, as you just indicated, Joe, are about the future. And the panic is now in full bloom, I assume, among the Democrats, people who put together these tickets, who vote for delegates, who will go to the convention. Full-blown panic. There's no doubt about that. The interesting aspect, and it's the only perhaps hopeful aspect of all this, is what are the polls going to show on Sunday or Monday, an in-depth poll about finally, you know, you saw Donald Trump for fully an hour and a half lying about every single issue that impacts people's lives, lying about abortion, lying about taxes, lying about the economy, just full-blown lies. And unfortunately, last night, President Biden let every fastball hanging out over the plate go right by for a strike for Donald Trump. So that was an indication that he was just not up to it last night.
Yeah. Okay, hold on a second. That I agree with everything you said, except for the last part of it. Everybody calm down, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's fine to not spin what happened last night, and we're not going to.
But by the way,
he had
Mika,
a terrible
by the way,
night.
Mika, everybody's calm here.
No,
you're the
but-
only one raising your voice.
No, no,
Everybody
no.
is calm here.
But again, it's the let's just immediately pull this. Let's end this. Let's find someone else.
That's not what Mike said.
That attitude toward this is what I am saying slow down on, because, again, there's no spinning it, but let's be balanced. Let's, for once, show some balance in a media world that is so shrill with imbalance that we've become inured to the difference between these two candidates. So let's put it this way. Gene Robinson, I'll go to you.
Well, wait. I just have to stop you. First of all, we always show balance.
We are, yeah.
Secondly, nobody's panicking. I said these were questions that Democrats and Joe Biden needed to ask themselves. And Mike said he missed one pitch down the middle after another and wasn't up to it last night.
Right, okay.
He said
wasn't up to it last night.
He said last night. So I will say that it's not panic. I mean, it's not being panicked. To understand what's at stake at this election and understand the window is closing very quickly. And if Joe Biden is not up to doing this, and if last night did not reveal that to you and other Democrats, then it needs to be revealed pretty soon. Mike, finish your thought. Alex is asking me to go back to you to finish your thought, and then back to Mika.
Last night, if it's on the ballot, you have the chance to vote for a good man or a bad man. There is no contest here, not even with last night's performance. Joe Biden is the good man. Joe Biden is the decent man. Donald Trump is the opposite. That's your choice going forward.
Right, right.
We all agree.
Gene Robinson, Biden will hear the bad news. And knowing Joe Biden, he has tremendous perspective. He will take it hard, and he will also know how to manage through it. What I'm talking about when it comes to balance, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are here, in this media landscape that we are living in, not on this show, but in the media landscape that we have to join, and many of them are pro-Trump networks or whatever, Donald Trump has had 1,000 days where he has said something, done something, said many things, including last night, where he appears to be completely unfit for office, completely oblivious of what the office entails, of what service means, and is out for himself. Joe Biden had a horrible night. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Gene?
Yeah, no, Joe Biden had a horrible night, absolutely, at a very, very bad time. As Joe said, it is fortunate for the Democratic Party that this happened in June and not in September or October, because if it had happened in September, October, I believe it would have guaranteed the election of Donald Trump to another term as president. And I think that would be disastrous for the country. You know, we have seen incumbent presidents blow the first debate before. But there was a big difference between those earlier examples and last night. In 2012 in Denver, Barack Obama blew the debate against Mitt Romney, and yes, there was concern, and yes, there was bedwetting, but going into that debate, nobody thought Barack Obama was lackadaisical and uninformed. They just thought, yeah, he had a bad night. Going into last night's debate, a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, thought Joe Biden was too old and feeble to have another four-year term as president. And he came out last night and he didn't dispel that impression as I expected him to, but he reinforced it. And that is a real problem. That is a real problem. So my question is, yes, absolutely, Mika, there should be no rush to anything. Let's see how this develops over the next few days, but let's start thinking, or I believe Democrats should start thinking seriously and concretely about scenarios, about whether Joe Biden can indeed run for president. As Joe said, we know he can be president. He has been an excellent president. I have never seen Biden like he was last night. Joe, you talked about your 3 hours with him. I haven't spent that much time with him recently, but the times I have spent with him, that wasn't the Joe Biden that I saw last night.
By the way,
Joe
you
Biden,
know who else said that? You know that it was Kevin McCarthy, despite his what he said to the Wall Street Journal when he contradicted himself. Kevin McCarthy's staff said, Gene, that repeatedly he came back and told his staff that Joe Biden was an effective negotiator and drove the meetings. And so it's not just me, it's like Republicans that were in negotiations. There's a reason why he passed more bipartisan legislation than any president in a generation. But go ahead, Gene.
Well, no, I mean, but the question is, how do you unring that bell that was rung last night? And that is my question. How do you sort of take that back? I don't know. Maybe again, time and events and Donald Trump can certainly reshape this race in all kinds of ways that might be favorable to Joe Biden. But that was a really, really bad and significantly bad night, I think, because it reinforced what is Biden's biggest weakness, and that is a problem for in running for president. It's not a problem in being president, but it's a problem in running for president in this very, very tight race where everything is at stake. And so do some concrete thinking here.
Jonathan Lemire and John Heilemann are down in Atlanta, the site of last night's debate. Jonathan Lemire, I'll start with you. Let's remember that the Biden campaign was the one who introduced the idea of this debate, of this early debate with this format under these terms, so that they could sort of reset for the American people and establish that Joe Biden was up for the job. That was the point of this debate. And the consensus is that he failed at that last night. I'll say again what we said at the top of the show. Donald Trump lied for 90 minutes. We'll go through all of it, chapter and verse, about January 6th, about immigration, about the economy he had, about how he handled COVID. We could go on for 4 hours this morning on all that. That's all true, but that is not what people will remember coming out of last night. So what are you hearing? You were there last night talking to officials, talking to people down in the room after the debate. What are you hearing about last night and about what may happen from here?
Well, let's start here. The stakes of this election couldn't be higher. And the loudest voice saying that has been the Biden campaign, saying democracy itself is on the ballot. And they looked at this race. They saw a frozen race, a very static race. And to your point, Willie, they're the ones who wanted this early debate. They felt like they needed to grab Americans' attention, tell them this is your choice. It's Biden and it's Trump. You might not be happy about it, but here's where we are. Listen to Donald Trump. Let's remind you of why another 4 years of him would be so disastrous to this country. And they knew the bar that they had to clear was about Joe Biden's age and competency for the job. He cleared it at the State of the Union. He did not clear it last night. And every aide that I've spoken to, Democrats are deeply worried about what they saw from the president. Yes, Trump lied. We will get into that. But the fundamentals here last night was that President Biden did not answer the bell. So I was here last night in Atlanta, Democrats scrambling. We had Vice President Harris, not scheduled to do any interviews last night, suddenly scrambled to do them on the cable networks, including MSNBC. We had aides about 45 minutes into the debate, suddenly blasting reporters' text messages telling us for the first time that President Biden had a cold, and that was explaining why he wasn't doing well. They pointed to his rally in North Carolina later today, saying that'll be a moment where he does do better. We had, at the moments after the debate, here in the spin room, on the campus of Georgia Tech University, Republicans, the Trump surrogates, were out instantly, wanting to talk to anybody they could about how well their guy did last night. We had to wait 15, 20 minutes for anybody from the Biden campaign to show up. And when they did, they were subdued. Gavin Newsom, the California governor, was flat out asked if he would perhaps be the Democratic nominee instead of Joe Biden. He, of course, said no. He said he stood with President Biden. But John Hammond, that moment sort of captures where we are right now. This was not just the 2012 debate. President Obama, yes, he was bad that night, but he went into that debate ahead. Joe Biden was not ahead last night. He wasn't down by much. It was a close race, margin of error race. But he had to answer some questions, and he didn't. He didn't show up last night. So now, where do we go from here? So it's a two-part question. How does the Biden campaign try to right the ship to say, look, he's our guy? Or how do Democrats make the push to him to say, no, you're not. We need to go another direction?
I'll just start by saying that just without having opinionizing about this. As a matter of fact, having covered presidential debates since 1992, and having seen a fair number of bad nights for candidates on first debates, bad nights for incumbents, some bad nights for challengers, in terms of measuring the degree of alarm of a presidential candidate's party about their performance, I have never seen anything like this by an order of magnitude.
Yes.
This is a reporting matter. Sitting congressmen, sitting senators, sitting governors, millionaires, billionaires, across the spectrum, people who've been supportive and loyal to Joe Biden from day one and continue in some respects to be supportive and loyal to Joe Biden, freaking out last night. I can't, as a reportorial matter, I can't overstate the degree of freakout about what they were seeing. I don't know what is going to happen now, but I will tell you that by the time you got to the first commercial break, at the highest levels of the Democratic Party, senators, governors, congresspeople, biggest bundlers, biggest donors, there were conversations about what do we do now? We need to figure out how that works. And there's a story the other day in the totally non-credible, in many respects, Daily Mail, I think, a couple weeks ago, on Monday, that said that the Clintons, the Obamas, Schumer and Pelosi were going to watch this debate, and if it did not go well for Joe Biden, they were going to go and try to have the talk with him about stepping back. Many people laughed at that. It was not a credible report. You looked at the Daily Mail, British tabloid, whatever. I had about 6 good sources after that who said that's not totally false. And the interesting part of that was the Schumer and Pelosi piece, because no one thinks Joe Biden would listen to the Obamas, the Clintons on this subject. But because he cares so much about Democrats in the House and Senate, there was some discussion about whether Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer privately were at least taking soundings on this question. I don't know what will happen now going forward. But I will say these are the kinds of conversations that people are having now in the Democratic Party as we speak. What to do, because the level of panic is, for me, in my time covering politics, I've never seen a level of panic about this on this scale.
So, Joe and Mika, to be clear, the Biden campaign defended their candidate's performance last night. They say he did draw that contrast he needed to with former President Trump, saying what a danger Trump would be to our democracy. But to illustrate John's point, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who knows Michigan as well as anyone, who's a dear friend of President Biden's, she was my guest on Way Too Early a short time ago. I put it to her whether President Biden should remain the top ticket. She didn't want to answer. She didn't say. And that shows you where the party is right now.
All right, we're going to have much more ahead on last night's debate, including what Biden and Trump had to say about their ages and what Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom of California had to say after Biden's debate performance.
And we will, of course, be tracking, again, all the lies that Donald Trump told over those 90 minutes that, unfortunately, were never answered.
You're watching Morning Joe. We're back in 90 seconds.
Have you ever considered getting a walk-in tub? Well, look no further. Safe Step's best offer just got better. Now, when you purchase your brand new Safe Step walk-in tub, you'll receive a free shower package. Yes, a free shower package. And if you call today, you'll also receive 15% off your entire order. Now you can enjoy the best of both worlds the therapeutic benefits of a warm, soothing bath that can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and even improve sleep. Or, if you prefer, you can take a refreshing shower, all in one product. Call now to receive a free shower package plus 15% off your brand new Safe Step walk-in tub.
Call now, 1-800-722-6464. There's never been a better time. That's 1-800-722-6464.
These bills are crazy.
She has no idea she's sitting on a gold mine.
Well, she doesn't know that if she owns a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, she can sell all or part of it to Coventry for cash, even a term policy.
Even a term policy?
Even a term policy!
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-738-1300 or visit coventrydirect.com.
It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate.
Worst president in history. 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America. He was standing with his four-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
The idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. There are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
When he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted.
How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Well, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
To a specific. Will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely.
I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
Let me just say, after watching tonight's debate, both of these men should be using performance-enhancing drugs. I'm sorry. Both. As much of it as they can get, as many times a day as their bodies will allow. If performance-enhancing drugs will improve their lucidity, their ability to solve problems, and in one of the candidates' cases, improve their truthfulness, morality, and malignant narcissism, then suppository away. Guess what, everybody? They should be taking whatever magical drugs can kick their brains into gear, because this ain't Olympic swimming. You know what I'm saying? Oh, he solved the Middle East, but he was doping, so it doesn't count. There's going to be an asterisk next to his presidency. And by the way, if those drugs don't exist, if there aren't actually performance-enhancing drugs for these candidates, I could sure use some recreational ones right now, because this cannot be real life. It just can't. We're America. God.
Willie, Jon Stewart's best. I will say, I've never really cared what You know, people saying, what does the rest of the world think of us? And I thought, well, that we're the freest, yeah, and we've freed more people and we fed more people than anybody on the planet. I will say last night when these two elderly gentlemen were having a back and forth about their golf handicap, I was so embarrassed that that's the view the world had of our debate for presidency. And of course, you know, there's so many lies that we just played there. I mean, he lied. You know, Donald Trump lied about January the 6th. He lied about stolen election. Which, by the way, was shocked it took so long to get there. Shocked that you had one guy up there who was a felon who tried to overthrow the American government, and it took 45 minutes for that issue to even come up. I'm not sure how that happened, but it took 45 minutes. But you have here even the suckers and losers quote Donald Trump lying about not saying that, saying that Joe Biden made it up. No, yeah. General John Kelly, his longest-serving chief of staff,
lost his son.
Who lost his son, I believe, in Afghanistan, told The Atlantic that he was with Donald Trump. And Kelly confirmed that Trump privately disparaged U.S. service members and veterans and called fallen soldiers suckers and losers during his presidency, Willie. That's General Kelly, who, like Joe Biden, lost a son, and General Kelly lost his son at war.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're deep marinated in the MAGA universe, just ask yourself, who do you believe in that story? Donald Trump or General John Kelly, who's given his life in service of the country? To Jon Stewart's point about the performance-enhancing drugs, Joe, I had a lot of people say last night, well, I guess now we know that Joe Biden was not on Mountain Dew, as one congressman alleged he was going to be jacked up on Mountain Dew, and that was the most tame of things that were introduced as possibilities, clearly not on anything last night. But to your point, I'll take it to Mike Barnicle. What Joe and Mika have been saying is it's not just the style. The style was bad. We've all talked about that. But on the substance, that Joe Biden was not able to answer the lies in his rebuttals. The format of the debate, which I will say, without the crowd and everything in there, we actually could just get to some issues, and a lot of them, in 90 minutes. It was left to the President of the United States to answer those criticisms. And he oddly got off course. Abortion, we've been told, is the cornerstone of this 2024 campaign. It is so important to so many people of all different parties in this country. And somehow the president fell flat on that issue when asked about it. He drifted off into a conversation about immigration. So it was on the president of the United States to answer the lies last night. And boy, were there a lot of them from former President Trump. And he wasn't up to the job of doing that.
Willie, again, as this morning proceeds, I get sadder and sadder and sadder. I was sad last night watching Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been a terrific president of the United States in terms of taking care of the world, in terms of trying to take care of ordinary people in this country. He's been terrific at it. And his goal is to make the world a better place for the middle class in this country and a safer place for countries like Ukraine. Without Joe Biden, Ukraine probably doesn't exist this morning as Ukraine. It's probably a captive of the Soviet Union, of Russia, of Putin. And good luck to everybody along the Ukraine border once Putin gets a taste of the victory he would have had. But, you know, Joe Biden last night stood next to a man who actually said, quote, unquote, I never had sex with a porn star. The guy's a candidate for president of the United States. This is the United States of America. This is the best we have. Donald Trump, this is the best alternative we have. A guy who says, I never had sex with a porn star. I never thought I would live to see the day when politics, national politics, things that are critical to the future of our country, critical to the future of your children, my grandchildren, everyone's families in the country. The guy poses a distinct threat to our way of life, to the way of the democracy that we all live in. And yet, here he is.
Yep. You know, the thing is, though, Jonathan Lemire, at one point, speaking about Ukraine, Donald Trump said, after the invasion of Ukraine, that he talked to Vladimir Putin. And let me get the exact quote. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it. This is the attacks. The bigger question is, what Democrat on stage with Donald Trump last night would not have stopped and said, wait, hold on. Wait, did you just say that you talked to Vladimir Putin after the invasion? And I guarantee you they're going to spin this now. After the invasion of Ukraine? And Vladimir Putin confessed to you that it was his dream to invade Ukraine? There's so many of those things, Jonathan, that Donald Trump left hanging out there. It wasn't a fastball. It was a ball on the tee that let me just say, that Josh Shapiro would have hit for a home run. My God, Gavin Newsom would have hit it for a home run. Any Democrat would have knocked that out and hit it for a home run. He said, I talked to Vladimir Putin after the invasion, and he told me it was his dream to invade Ukraine. And yet, that's another pitch that went right down the middle of the play.
Went past everybody.
Yeah, one of the few, I thought, good moments from President Biden, you mentioned NATO, is that he tried to ask Donald Trump if he would stay in NATO if he won again. And Trump was about to answer and then bizarrely cut off by the moderators who seemed too intent to keep the discussion moving and not actually the time moving, as opposed to actually let the two men have a discussion. But you're right, that was a moment where President Biden didn't say anything about Vladimir Putin. Early on, in the debate, he missed opportunity after opportunity. You mentioned how he pivoted from abortion nonsensically to immigration. There was also a moment early on where Biden, introduced the concept of Afghanistan. And the Afghanistan withdrawal is one of, even the president's allies will note, one of the sort of darker moments of his term. Very successful first term otherwise, they will say. And it was Biden himself who brought up Afghanistan, allowing Trump to hammer him on that. John Hammond, I mean, there are moments there, to Joe's point last night, where it's hard to imagine any other Democrat not rebutting what Trump had to say, all the lies, and there were so many. Biden wasn't able to. He wasn't able to do it. And some close to him will say that's just a bad night. But I think for a lot of Democrats who are panicking today, and also a lot of American voters, they look at that and say, actually, maybe this is who he is. Should he continue in this job going forward?
Well, I think, one of the things, I think, Joe, when we were talking just maybe yesterday on the air about, what the Biden messages has come down to, like what is the frame, and this question of Trump cares only about himself, Biden's fighting for you, Trump only fights for himself, and the various kind of penumbra that might come out of that. I looked at this last night, 90 minutes on the debate stage last night. That message that they have been honing, and that you heard surrogates saying it, a boiled down version of it on television on various networks over the course of the run up to this debate last night. I defy you to go through and find those words coming out of Joe Biden's mouth last night. The message that they apparently had settled on as being the frame for the debate, a frame for the race going forward, something that the candidate didn't deliver in the course of 90 minutes. And I think that kind of performance failure, a basic performance failure, where you've decided this is the frame for the race and that the candidate does not say anything approximating it even once over the course of the 90 minutes, is the kind of thing that is why so many Democrats are nervous and concerned about this. And John, you pointed Mika, I think, suggested she may not be alone in having missed that Vladimir Putin reference that went by. A lot of people might not have been as quick, Joe, as you were to catch it, but there were some really basic hanging curves out there over the plate that Joe Biden, on a normal day, on a day 6 months ago, that we've seen Joe Biden in recent vintage knock out of the park. Last night, he didn't. And the thing is that, we are supposed to have a second presidential debate. I do not think that debate is very likely to happen at this point. You never know with Donald Trump. He may just be enough of a narcissist and a gambler to think that he can do this again. But the great likelihood is this may be the only debate that we see, Joe. And I think, the reality is game-changing moments between now and the election. There's a lot of time between now and November 5th. The things on the calendar where there are going to be tens of millions of viewers tuning in, there aren't that many. And certainly not where they're going to get to go face-to-face again. So, how do you turn the page on this?
Well,
that's the question.
And I will say it is true that it's only June. I remember a very important article that you wrote, John Heilman, in 2012 about the Obama Romney race. And it was a look back. And you said in that piece, you showed how Barack Obama's team had already locked in the perception of Mitt Romney as this evil, money-grubbing venture capitalist who destroyed people's lives and killed a man by taking his insurance away. And as unfair as those attacks were, as you said in your New York Magazine piece, that reality was locked in with voters by May.
By now.
We're now in June, and so that is the problem. Hey, John, thank you so much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it. And I'll just say this, Meek, as we close this hour and we're about to start a new hour, I would just say that John is right. The president
From pep in their step to shine in their coats. When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's just smarter, healthier pet food. It's amazing what real food can do.
For moderate to severe Crohn's disease, Skyrizi is the first IL-23 inhibitor that can deliver remission and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining.
Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, had a vaccine, or plan to. Liver problems may occur in Crohn's disease.
Control of Crohn's means everything to me. Ask your gastroenterologist about Skyrizi.
Control is everything to me.
Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Did you know that if you shave, 1/3 of what you remove is skin? New Dove helps repair it. So if you shave it, Dove it. New Dove. Replenish your skin after every shave.
Compared with other chews, one Brevecto chew protects from fleas and ticks for 12 weeks, nearly 3 times longer.
Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurological disorders. Protection that lasts longer? Bravo, Brevecto. Bravo.
There's a 71% chance you could be overpaying for car insurance. That's why Experian has a new free tool that could save you money by finding you our best deal. And it works. Experian users saved an average of $900 per year.
Go to Experian.com/car and stop overpaying for car insurance.
A perfect day for a family outing. Shingles doesn't care, but Shingrix protects. Only Shingrix is proven over 90% effective. Shingrix is a vaccine used to prevent shingles in adults 50 years and older. Shingrix does not protect everyone and is not for those with severe allergic reactions to its ingredients or to a previous dose. An increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome was observed after getting Shingrix. Fainting can also happen. The most common side effects are pain, redness, and swelling at the injection site, muscle pain, tiredness, headache, shivering, fever, and upset stomach. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Shingrix today.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always hot.
Sleep Number does that. Shop our lowest prices of the season with no interest until 2027. Sleep Number smart bed starting at $9.99. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
Centrum. It's scientifically formulated to help you take charge of your health. Centrum gives everybody a healthy foundation, supporting your energy, immunity, and metabolism. And yours too. You did it. Plus, try Centrum Silver, now clinically proven to support memory in older adults.
Want the effects of Viagra, but faster? Meet Rose Sparks. They contain sildenafil and tadalafil, but Sparks dissolve under the tongue. Dissolvables work faster than old school pills. Connect with a medical provider at ro.co/sparks.
Let it rain, Randy! Yeah. That's how you make like it never even happened.
Serve Pro.
Your loved ones are getting older, and they need your support. Care.com is here to help. It's an easy way to find background-checked senior caregivers in your area and some peace of mind. See why millions of families have trusted Care. Go to Care.com now.
They said optical shops weren't very inviting. So we, Warby Parker, created ones that were. They said prescription eyewear was too expensive. So we offered more affordable glasses, contacts, and eye exams. They said opticians weren't always friendly. So we hired only the friendliest and the most knowledgeable. And finally, they said the whole experience was just kind of unpleasant. So we set out to change that too. Visit a Warby Parker store and see for yourself.
At Care.com, it's easy to get a break, even if you're not on summer vacation. Join millions of families who've trusted us and find caregivers in your area for kids, seniors, pets, and homes. Go to Care.com now to find the care you need this summer.
Our daughter just bought her first house.
All by herself.
So we went to go see it.
She knew exactly how she wanted everything.
But then he pointed out the gutters.
You think you've raised them right, and then...
She didn't know. You have to call Leaf Filter.
Leaf Filter's patented filter technology keeps debris out of your gutters for good.
Parenthood is such a wild ride.
It's a lot easier with Leaf Filter.
Join millions of satisfied homeowners. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER today or visit leaffilter.com.
On the signature issue that Democrats have, which is abortion, the president's response was garbled and undirected at best. Yeah. Do you feel like he did what he needed to do on an issue that could motivate voters in the polls?
I think it's significantly insignificant because it's de minimis because the American people have made up their mind. They don't support the policies of Donald Trump. They certainly don't support his policies or his assertion somehow the American people always wanted this to be states' rights, which was laughable and absurd. So I think for all of us, worry less and do more. We have the opportunity to turn the page. We have the opportunity to put our heads down. We have the opportunity to universally have the back of this president who's had our back. You don't turn your back. You go home with the one that brought you to the dance.
There is panic that has set in. There is panic that has set in among people who have watched this debate, who are Democrats, people who are strategists, and some even inside Democratic campaigns. Yeah. Do you think it's unfounded?
Well, I think it's unhelpful, and I think it's unnecessary. We've got to go in and got to keep our heads high. And as I say, we've got to have the back of this president. You don't turn your back because of one performance. What kind of party does that? It's been a masterclass. 15.6 million jobs. That's 8 times more than the last 3 Republican presidents